Please.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Mortensen.
Here.
Mr. Catalini.
Here.
Mr. Wincheimer.
Here.
Mr. Chark.
Here. There is a quorum. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to start out by, introducing the new superintendent of Rush Schools to the community, Mrs. Marcia Cody, our first regular board meeting together. It's nice to get started with you. I'd like to mention just a few things before we move on to the meeting. The board and Mrs. Cody has had a very busy and productive retreat in June. Thank you for Dr. Zila for helping us out there all day. I think we left there real solidified on a few things that really stood out to me. Primarily the focus on increasing student outcomes and experiences for all students. And moving forward in a positive, transparent manner and providing the effective support for all of our students, staff, and admin. I think that was the underline of that entire retreat. So I feel like we came away from there moving in the right direction for sure. I also want to mention, as you noticed, that the agenda is structured slightly differently than in the past. Marcia and I felt that this would help us increase transparency and provide some more increased healthy dialogue with some of the things we're going to go through in the superintendent's report in particular. There is no item for board discussion, as there's going to be some opportunity for that kind of discussion during the superintendent's report, and I'll let Marcia elaborate on how she likes to work through that during that time. There's also a new section titled Debrief at the end, and that'll allow Marcia and the board to provide clarifications, any final questions, and then also discuss if there's any policy pieces that we feel like we need to review in light of what we discussed in the meeting, any new policy we need to create, or future agenda items. So just kind of a wrap-up summary of the meeting. And then you also notice that there's no long list of policy pieces to review for this meeting. We're going to narrow in the focus on reviewing and revising the most important and timely and urgent policies each month, rather than shotgunning a list of a whole bunch of policies each time. So, so we'll start the meeting with adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Is there any debate? There's no debate. Sandy, roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen.
Aye.
Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Chark.
Aye. Agenda is adopted. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as posted?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as posted. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen.
Aye.
Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Chark.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, presentation by Mr. Jamie Lorenzini, Director of Maintenance. Mrs. Cody, would you please introduce Mr. Lorenzini to the board?
I would be honored to. So, Mr. Lorenzini came into our district shortly before I did and has just done a marvelous job. I've received feedback from the city, from principals, from community members, from so many different people on what a great job he's already doing. He sees something, he addresses it, he puts it on the list, he communicates well, following processes, whether it's like, hey, like, this approved? Can we go forward with this? And even though I know it's been tricky, as we develop those processes, he's been patient and like, let's do this. Very open, very collaborative. He gets his hands right in there with everybody else. I've been impressed. You know, he told me he goes by a theme of he doesn't ask somebody to do something he's not willing to do, and that's evident every single day. When you find him, he's hard at work, and so I feel like we are incredibly blessed to have him. And so, Mr. Lorenzini, he's gonna talk about the chillers. That's one of the action items for tonight, is the chillers, and my background is not maintenance, and so, Mr. Lorenzini is gonna share more about that.
Well, thank you. So, we had some issues with the chiller when we came in, the new chiller at the high school, and we've got some refrigerant leaks, so we're low on refrigerant in that, and it's kind of a pricey repair, so Mark asked me to talk about it a little bit. So they'll have to come in and remove the refrigerant, reclaim that, go through and test the system for leaks, then go ahead and repressurize everything after they fix the leaks, of course, and they'll go in and look and see to make sure that our ice builder tanks are holding the right levels and that the controls are telling us and talking to everything and everything's legitimate and how it should be, and then that'll help us with our cooling, because right now we're struggling. We also have a control board on that same unit on the ice chillers that's out, so we're not running at full capacity, so we're having a little bit of an issue trying to keep the school cool. But that's pretty much what we're doing. And then, like I said, and the board is pricey, and other than that, I mean, that's what I got for you. You guys got any questions about it?
Does that have anything to do with the glycol leaks that?
Well, so that system does use glycol. We did have a leak. We're low on glycol. We purchased glycol, and we will be refilling that as well. But this is a refrigeration, on the refrigeration side of it more than the glycol. So, and after we get it up and going, I think we're pretty good. I mean, the history of it, from what I've been told too, is Cobb came in, put the units in. They were kind of helping manage it as we go, just because you got to have certifications and some of that stuff. And so we were kind of using them, and then we were unimpressed with what they were giving us back. And so we went to Jamar. Jamar has since found this issue and isn't 100% sure that the chillers were ever run correctly. So this should be the fix to get us in the right direction moving forward, and then we'll monitor it and we'll learn as we go. My staff, included especially, and we'll get our hands around it a little bit better as we go forward too. So,
May I say one more thing, Mr. Chair?
Absolutely.
So, I just sang Mr. Lorenzini's praises, but I also want to sing the praises of the entire maintenance team, janitorial. If you get a chance to go over to the maintenance shop and say hi sometime, they're just working hard, and what they're doing, and just willing to step up and do whatever. Great attitudes whenever I pop in. Mr. Bass has had to put up with me with several meetings this summer already, and every time I see them out there just going at it. So thank you for being a good leader. Thank you to your whole team. And,
thank you.
And there are treats over there for your team and for you.
I don't need any treats. So some guys will appreciate
I'll bring them tomorrow morning.
Thank you so much, really appreciate it.
Is there, does anyone have any other questions in regard to any of the chiller or gym floors or any of the other maintenance items we're looking at tonight that Mr. Lorenzini might be able to answer for us while he's here?
I had sent out earlier today the proposal to resurface the 2 gyms at the secondary campus, but not the auxiliary gym.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be interested in looking at possibly what we can do in this calendar year yet, what that looks financially and stuff, because it's my opinion, just from participating and coaching basketball and stuff over there, that auxiliary gym might be the worst one.
Well, and it is.
And
I'll talk to that just a second. It is the worst one, but as far as time frame goes and to where we're able to get in touch and get everything going, their schedule up to the start of school. They can do the 2 gyms, the resurface, but to take that, the auxiliary's got to come down basically all the way to wood, and then take that, and buff it and get the wood right, and then go ahead and coat it again. We're on the same page. We're going to want to do that. I'd ask and talk to Marcia a little bit, and we're thinking that'll come, but maybe at a break, as far as Christmas break or spring break, sometime right in there, to try to get that one back in order. And the floor guys had told me after I walked it with them that they thought it would be pretty senseless to go ahead and do anything with that floor until we can, at the time that it's a longer process for them as well. So as soon as they can fit us in, we'll go ahead and get that one, as long as everybody's okay with the budget and everything. But yes, that's definitely on the radar, and we're gonna move forward with that as soon as possible, so.
So if I understood what was provided to us correctly, the recommendation is to do that resurfacing annually on
The
those?
Yes,
And
The
then
refinish.
there's a 5 or 7 year cycle to actually
Right.
take it clear down
mhm,
and redo it.
yeah.
So is there any benefit to doing just the basic resurface on that as soon as possible? And then try to get in a cycle for next summer with that floor? To make
Well, so we-
make it safer and
So,
better for competition?
I think if we wanted to do that, off of their recommendation, they wanted to come in and do the whole thing. It's gonna be like 7 days, but with their schedule, we can fit it into a break-in. So he thought it'd be pretty pointless, we're not gonna see a lot of game with the type of, so when you walk in the door, there's some chipping and, flaking, just little spots. But he said it's pretty pointless to coat it and then have to come in, and when they come back in, we're wasting our money. That was his recommendation as a district. So he's, and the floor itself, if we, that's on my agenda too, to keep everything dusted and cleaned up the best I can with our team. But he didn't feel like the floor was in enough, I don't know how to say it, I guess. His recommendation was, let's do it this way and then get them back in here when they got some time to get that floor taken care of, even if it's, he said he'd work with us. So I'm kind of under the impression, as soon as we can and as soon as it's okay, we'll get that other one done as time allots, hopefully, even maybe before basketball. I don't know, I don't know when the breaks are exactly, but he
So
just,
Yeah, that's where my concern lies, is we have enough ball games in there and stuff, and
Mhm.
it's
Makes sense.
pretty rough on those kids.
So maybe we could go ahead with, Megan, this will go to the board for approval, but maybe we could just see what their dates are available
okay, I can do that for
for
sure.
the resurfacing, and then
Okay.
bring it
I'll
back
get
to the
you-
board for approval.
Cause we have a week for Thanksgiving this year as well.
Mhm.
Right, that's,
2.5 week window between volleyball and basketball, where we can
Okay.
move PE out of there.
And we could do that for sure, yeah, if that's the way we wanna go with that. They're open to do it, they just were really, but I couldn't get them to get in here and be out by the 12th, so.
right.
So I said, okay, well, let's do the 2 that we can get to, and we'll move forward on the other ones at the time when we can decide for sure. But we'll put it on the top of the list,
Makes sense.
if you're good with that, or whoever. Good, March is okay with it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mr. Bass sounds like he has some dates, you two can figure out what
Okay,
maybe the
yeah.
best dates are and work with
Perfect.
Ponder, that would be great.
I'll get in touch with them tomorrow, and we'll nail that down and get it done as quick as we can.
Very good.
Anything else? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, guys.
You can go.
Okay.
Please, but can I? You're welcome to stay too.
No, yeah, I think it's 6. So, thank you guys very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Next item is community comment. Looks like there's no community comment for this section. Next item of business would be reports. Do we have any board reports for 6.1? Have you guys met on the traffic study since last
No.
month?
Tyler's actually gone. I talked to him a couple days ago, and I think he's supposed to be back the end of this week or something. so.
Okay. Anything different on salvage committee?
That's all at a pause until production starts back up.
Yeah. So that yard's just, it's empty now,
It's
huh?
sitting empty.
Okay.
Celebrations from board, is this where you want them,
Sure,
Mr. Chairman?
sure.
I'd just like to commend the staff for, the job they did around the facilities for the 4th of July. I actually reached out to Marcia on like the 2nd or something like that, just to kind of give her a heads up, being new in town and not understanding all the festivities and how big of a deal it was, and I did that early in the morning when I was driving to the office, and I had to go back through town at noon, and it was like, oh, like, well, a ton of this stuff is done, and I should have done it when Jamie was still here. Yeah, it was something to be proud of.
It's great to hear.
And that was Mr. Lorenzini, called him and he's like on it.
It's awesome. Bryson, would you like to give a treasurer's report?
Sure. We did have finance committee. I think a bulk of what we discussed, will actually fill in here throughout the agenda, but, nothing major to discuss there that I don't think that Ms. Cody is the appropriate, person to share, details and information throughout the meeting, but, yeah, first one, and Lisa's on vacation, well-deserved vacation, I'm sure of it, and, so we'll just continue to work through, some of the procedures and processes and stuff that we've discussed over the last 30 or 60 days and continue to build and get better.
Has there been DAC or BOCES meetings during the summer? Okay.
If there was, I missed it. I'll just fess up, but I don't think there was.
Very good. Next item of business, superintendent's report. Mrs. Cody, would you present the superintendent's report and maybe just give the board some of the vision with your perspective and what you feel like is the best way for the board to work through this report with you and what kind of dialogue you expect?
Absolutely, thank you. So there's several things that I'll be presenting tonight that you're going to be taking action on. And there's others that you won't be, but they're just things I want to make you apprised of, make sure that you know about. As I go through these, I'll just ask if you have questions, similar to what Mr. Lorenzini, like, hey, this is what's going on. If you have thoughts, questions, it's a time of just casual discussion during my report, so that we don't need to take action or anything, motion or anything. It's just a discussion throughout this report. So feel free to ask questions. A couple of things before I actually, is that anything else to clarify
No, I
or
don't think
questions
so.
about that? Before I actually go into the report, and I'll try not to make this the longest superintendent's report on the planet, I want to shout out some celebrations. First of all, I want to shout out the Board of Education. It is, I think, very important that the community knows that all 7 board members sacrificed their time on Friday and all day Saturday in June during a key time of work to go because you care about this community, this school district, and their students and staff. Thank you. Thank you for your dedication and time going down to downtown Denver and spending the time to have some really good conversations. I was exhausted by the end of the day, but appreciated the hard work that came out of that meeting, and we're going to talk about some of the outcomes from that. I also wanted to shout out Mr. Bass. He, like I said, he and I have met several times. He is actually not on contract, but has been in, I don't know how many days per week Mr. Bass has been in. He has probably been in more than he hasn't been in, just taking care of things, and appreciate all the time that he's put in. Today he led an excellent meeting with the athletic directors and me. It was just he facilitated, he sent an agenda ahead of time, went through it as well articulated, well planned, well done, so just great job with Mr. Bass. With Miss Carey, she is on that well-deserved vacation, but we had somebody come in, you'll hear about this more in just a second, to review processes and practices and policies, and she handled that, not only handled it well, but framed it well for all the finance staff. Talked about, we want to continue to grow and be better, so let's do this thing. I'm excited about it. I hope you're excited too, and appreciate her attitude, her desire to learn. She came up to me and said, hey, can I take some trainings through our accounting program, IV? And I said, absolutely. And another finance department staff member said, hey, can I? And absolutely. And just that willingness to learn and to grow exemplifies her heart. So I just want to shout her out as well. Also, Mr. Singley, I want to shout him out. So he's been roofing, but when I met with him, and it was probably early May, the last time I met with him, we just got to talking instruction and students and math, and I'm like, oh, there's this math training, yada, yada, yada. He and Mr. Wilson, we had a nice long meeting this last week, and he told me, it's like, I did that math training. I'm like, you did the math training? He's like, yeah, I was like roofing and listening to it. He's like, heard all about this, like just in time scaffolding, and we just got to talking, and I was so proud of him for just dedicating that time. Again, it's about continuously learning and just wanting to know best on how to serve kids and how to improve in mathematics instruction. So a big shout out there. Also, our BOCES, Miss Aldridge and Miss Shaver both made time with me. Lots of hours there just learning about our special ed program, and I'm excited. We are on the same page philosophically, so excited about what's going to kind of accomplish there. Today I had like a 3.5 hour meeting with our city with Mr. Torres. That was a really good meeting. Excited about that and just our partnership as we go forward as a city and as a school district. And then Mr. Murphy over there in the corner has been a trooper and a half. I can't even tell you all the things he has done just within the past few weeks of, hey, there's this and this and this, and just always willing again with that positive attitude, like, yeah, I can help out, I can fix that, I can do that, I'll do this and that, and yeah, I can post that on Facebook, and yeah, here's the Aptogee, and again, just a great attitude through it all. So just thank you to Mr. Murphy and his team, to Penny too. So lots of amazing people in this district, in this community. Just think the world of each person that I have had the privilege of working with. And of course, Sandy over here has put up with all of my emails and requests, and hey, can we do this and this and this and this, and Candy as well. So it's been a wonderful 2 weeks. Now we're starting week 3, day 1 of week 3. So it's been a good couple of weeks. So the first couple of documents, you have this in hard copy in front of you. And this is a board action item, are those 3 outcomes from the board retreat. The first are the team norms, the governance team's norms. By governance team, we're meaning the school board and me, we're governance team. And during this board retreat, we engaged in several activities, you recall. First, it was the norms, and then we sorted the superintendent role and board of education role, got clarity on that superintendent role, wrote that, and then came up with some communication agreements. So, with these norms, I'm just going to read them out loud. More, I know that you know them. We talked about it, but if it's okay, just going to read them real quickly out loud, more for our community and others. So, Brush School District's Board of Education decisions are primarily focused on increasing student outcomes and experiences. That's what we're focused on. That is our goal. The Board of Education superintendent will hold themselves and each other to the highest level of accountability and proper channels. The Board of Education will maintain appropriate transparency at all levels. The Board of Education will assume good intent and respect the roles of all stakeholders. The Board of Education will strive to create and maintain a board culture that promotes respect and understanding. The Board of Education will make fact-based decisions. The Board of Education will uphold and support the decisions of the board once made. And the Board of Education will maintain intentional training and ongoing professional development. So any thoughts on that? Do those still resonate with you? Any questions on those or feedback? Feel good about them still? Mm-hmm. Good, good. The next is the role of the superintendent. Again, we clarified that and said, okay, what do you want? What is my role? What's board's role? What's both of our roles? And then what is it you want me to do? And then there'll be an evaluation tool coming from this. I'm just going to hit those big topics that are right by there. The first is students first, and the next is learning environment. The third is facilities and assets. The fourth is finance. Fifth is legal governance. 6 is high quality staff. 7, communication, and 8, strategic planning. Those still feel right on? That seems so simple. And how long did we talk about all of this? Okay, that was like a half a day right there. If only could have been that quick, right? The next piece is the communication agreements. And those areas we talked about confidentiality, about non-emergency communication, emergency items, how that will be handled, group text, how to address concerns and how to follow those proper channels, what to do in split decisions, what we do if we have a news request for a news outlet, and Board of Education public messages. Any changes there? Everything still resonate and feel right? Great. So again, just so proud of those conversations and the hard work that all 7 board members engaged in. And just to reiterate, Mr. Charles, thank you to Dr. Zila for helping us facilitate that. He's such a blessing too. The next document in your board packet, well, the next thing on the superintendent's report is the board meeting schedule. So that is there. It's a link. It's in the board docs. The superintendent's report is a link as board docs for the public to see. They can click on that. And then the board meeting schedule is there as well. I think all the meetings are on pretty much their typical times. We may talk about the location might vary, but we'll talk about that more in August. The next document is the 90-day plan. This is just my first 90 days. Like, what do you expect? What should you expect is going to happen during these first 90 days? It's also known as an entry plan. So you'll see there's the pre-entry activities. Those took place April. Yeah, I started a little bit on them in March, but really it was April, May, and June. And throughout this, you'll notice all of those are in green or complete. Very few are complete at this time. All of the yellow are in progress, so those are happening. The red have not begun yet as of this last review. That work is being done. I'll give you a second to look that over and ask any questions that you have. And some of these I could put, like number 24, that's actually happening tomorrow.
It's a lot of things to do.
Life is not dull for any of us, right? Anything that you'd like to see added or different or clarity on? Back here. All right, are you okay if I move on? I don't want to go too quickly, but I also don't want to take too long. Like I said, we're not going to try to make this as long as possible. The next piece is the financial report. You're going to see that the financial report tonight is embedded in my report because Ms. Carey is gone. And Ms. Carey and I have been working on a new structure for the financial report. This one, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here so you can see. I thought I went ahead and pulled it up. Yep. How this will be structured, this is the first version that you'll see here. You'll see another version next month. It'll just be tweaked slightly, but here's the heart behind it. What we want the Board of Education to know is what are those large expenses that are outliers, and what are those outlier revenues maybe that are not typical. You know state shares coming in, you know certain things, but there's sometimes some outliers. So that's what's articulated here. There's a couple of expenses, but shouldn't be a surprise if it's over $10,000, right? Because that was already board approved. So like the Chromebooks you see there, that was a board action item, so you see that coming through the June expenses. Should all match up. That's the goal. If it doesn't, that's where you're like, hey Marcia, what's going on? Couple of things also, like ESSER 3 funds, that's something that you've known about. We're at the very end. Those are, and Ms. Carey clarified what that is, and that's the final fund request. And that we've qualified for community eligibility provision, and that just means that everybody qualifies for free breakfast, free lunch. I talked to Ms. Kimball today. There's still a lot in the works. Just what does that mean? What does that look like with as far as free and reduced lunch application? We have a lot of questions. She's doing the groundwork on that, so more to come on that. Expect to hear a lot more about that in August. So we're just got approved, so now what is really the question? Any questions on the June piece, those first 4 bullets? The next piece, and before I go into this next piece, which is just looking into this month, what should you be aware of, is you'll notice I'm not reading off like our fund balance. What I've shared with the Finance Committee and also with Ms. Carey is I'm not sure if that's going to be the most informative piece of information for you, because it just depends on when our board meeting comes and our state share, and those are all allocated in the budget. So we'll probably focus more on those big expenses and big revenues, those changes. So looking at July, what we've been working on collectively with the admin team is, and the directors, is a document which shows all of the maintenance repairs that need to be done, all the work that needs to happen. So there's a running list which I shared with all of you. There's also a list that we called, and that was, I shared it with you when it was called maintenance request. That title of that document has now been changed to budget considerations for 24-25. I think it begins with 24-25 budget considerations. So if you search your Google Drive, that's what it's called. Because now there's additional tabs at the bottom. The next tab is about subscriptions applications. There's also in there technology that we're keeping track of. It's just a place where when Ms. Carrie and I work on a revised budget, we can go right there and say, this is it. This is what we need to be mindful of. It's all in one spot. So with the subscriptions applications, then you can see what is encumbered so far, which means, hey, that's what we're planning on. I've signed a requisition, or Dr. Wilson signed a requisition, and where our budget is. And then the digit-wide electronic media, when we do a revised budget, which you may see a revised budget, a good strong possibility in September with that proposed revised budget, and then I would ask you to adopt it in October. So just kind of put that on your radar, that's gonna be coming. When that does come, those technology purchase services, that 57,000, is going to be put into that technology purchase service line. That's like GoGuardian, Viper, Alma, those expenses that are really not curriculum. They're more technology, they're more Mr. Murphy's wheelhouse. Questions there on any of that? Yeah.
Just to be clear, on textbooks and curriculum, is most of that money spent towards the front end of the school year?
Great question. So yes, so in July and August, it feels like you're spending all of your funds and it gets a little bit scary, but what you want to do is have all your subscriptions and applications, those contracts, to renew at the same time around July. So they're ready for the full school year. So great question. Any other additional questions? Great, the next piece is also going to partner up with, I'm gonna pull up my report again so you can see it here. Down here, which is, we did this financial review with Terry Buswell. So Terry Buswell was a CFO with BOE, Centennial BOCES, for at least 20 years. I don't wanna misstate and say 30, but it was a lot of years, 20-something years. And very knowledgeable. He's also been a consultant for Sterling and for others, and has worked at a school level in different capacities. So now we realize, hey, we have some things that we need to clear up. There's just some questions here. We had a line item from last year that was overspent way beyond where it should have been. So how did that happen? What are our processes? What do we need to clean up so we can be completely transparent with our community, right? We know it's taxpayer money. So, like I said, Ms. Carey was so great about, hey, yes, let's have Mr. Buswell come in and have conversations. He met with every single member of the finance team, met with them for extensively, at least an hour and a half, interviewed them, talked to them, looked at policies, talked about our procedures and practices, met with Callie, met with Carol Lee, met with Candy, Lisa, all of them. And from that, he came up with this list of recommendations, which is the next document in your packet. And from that, we're going to be, Lisa, Ms. Carey, and I will be going through this document starting this week and determining, okay, what's our number one priority? How do we start addressing some of these recommendations? How do we want to prioritize them, and how do we want to go about them? So that leads to the second part about looking to July. So one of the things when I came in is I said, hey, anything that's over $1,000, I want to be able to sign for. And yet we also understand that maintenance, transportation, have some everyday expenses, and we don't want to make a barrier for them for those everyday, like to go get some nails, but we also want to be careful, right, and have a process in place. So that's where you see those blanket POs that if it's over $1,000, you've got to put in a requisition. That's where I was like, all of the changes, anything that's happening, it has to be approved, and I have to have my signature on it. But if you're going to go get nails and you're going to go get, you know, a gallon of gas or something, yes, just move forward with those blanket POs. Any questions on those blanket POs, that last bullet item on that page?
So on the back of that page, are these like limits, or what are the?
So that's the limit for the year, for this fiscal
That's
year.
annual limits?
Mhm. They can't go over $1,000 on an expense. and then not to exceed that amount in this fiscal year.
So,
Great question.
What if you have lots of breakdowns and they get as expensive as parts are? Cause 6,000 for the whole year, is not a lot.
And some of those, like those breakdowns are more than $1,000, so that will automatically go into that higher level requisition. This is more like, hey, I need this filter.
Okay.
Type of
okay,
thing,
that makes
so.
more sense. Yes, okay.
So this is just those blanket POs, those everyday little things
Sounds
that
good.
they don't have to submit a requisition for.
Thank you.
All right. So you can look at this, the feedback report from Mr. Buswell. I think it's very interesting, very helpful, so that we can just fine tune our processes and what we're doing. So you might just take a minute, glance at that. Let me know if you have any big questions or thoughts coming from that. Those look so simple, right? There's just like a double-sided page, should be a piece of cake.
There's a lot of common sense on that front and back page, but it's a lot of stuff to
I was just
implement
gonna
and
ask, do you have
procedure.
like a timeline on how you're gonna approach all this with the team?
The short answer is no, not a direct timeline yet, but that's what we wanna do, is create that timeline, a priority. But the answer is as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is like I've talked to Mr. Bass, some of those things, like he's very open, yes, how do we do this? How do we put these processes in place, so.
Will there be I assume there will with your organization, but will we be able to see kind of a check-in on this in a couple of months to say, okay, here's where we're at, just so we know it all got covered? Because this is great stuff, we don't wanna lose sight of this, yeah.
It might be good to do it similar to the 90-day plan, like the green, yellow, and red, not to be
Okay.
redundant, but I just think,
Yeah.
just to kind of have that in there till we get to the end.
Mhm.
It just is a nice form of accountability, like, hey, here's where we are, or just expect it to be yellow for a while.
No, I think that's good, that helps make sure it all gets
Mhm.
done, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Just making a note real quick so it doesn't get dropped off. All right, any other thoughts or questions on that document? All right, the next piece, and I'm actually gonna turn it over to Sandy in a second, so prep, is the hourly classified and bus driver salary schedule recommended revision. So Sandy's gonna talk about this extensively, and a huge shout out for her on this. She started working on this immediately, and has put hours into it, like looking at each particular person. So I'm gonna turn over to her and we'll go from there.
Okay, kind of what it all boils down to, I just tried to see what it would look like with some similarity to what you guys approved for certified staff. And it actually fell together a lot better than I thought it was going to. Paras, for example, it's not an option to reduce their calendar days, because we need them. We need them those days. But, I don't know, I thought, why wouldn't it be logical to go back to how we used to do it? They were always on a 30-minute shorter day than teachers. So that's what I did, lessening hours. It was quite similar to what we did for teachers. Our full-time substitutes, because that's just more and more staff, putting them on the same day as a teacher, but then, yeah, doing kind of the same thing, increasing their hourly rate. But like none of these I've talked about so far, it won't affect the budget because their annual 7% increase stays the same. It's just lessening in hours, but increasing rates to keep that 7%. Where the hit will be, I don't think it's realistic to cut 260 employees, because we need them. We need them year round. We need the maintenance guys, we need the custodians, we need technology, we need district office staff. So that will be a hit to the budget. I calculated what the average would be for the others, and it's like $1.25 increase on average. So that's what I looked at doing for 260 employees, also for childcare. Not an option to reduce their hours worked. We need them the hours that they're already scheduled, so that would be $1.25 increase. And I think in the end, those two departments increasing, including $1.25 increase, para, like $140,000 hit to the budget. It's what's gonna end up.
Can we talk a little bit about bus drivers too?
Bus drivers, we're decreasing their hours a little more, but it just is what it is. We're 150 or 146 days at 5 hours a day. It's gonna be around a $3 increase, but also not a hit to the budget because their annual 7% increase will be the same. But I don't know, it's so hard to get bus drivers, and there's not that many of them right now, so I don't know. Is there any specific group that you have concerns, questions about? There's 123 employees that will be adjusted.
I want to add something real quick before you ask your questions. So the biggest thing there, I just want to highlight the theme, is reducing hours but increasing hourly salary. So that their annual increase is that 7%, right? They bring home 7% more this coming school year than they brought home this year.
Okay.
That's what we want to see.
Good.
So reducing hours, not to hurt their pay, but then increasing, if we're reducing their hours, we're increasing their hourly wage. And there's some people that are impacting the budget because we may not be able to reduce their hours and still increasing their pay. Bus drivers, we're reducing some hours, but we're greatly increasing their pay. And I want to just restate what Sandy just said. Having a CDL is a big deal. That is, we need bus drivers. And so increasing them by $3 an hour, I highly recommend. I don't know that, you can overpay a bus driver, but really not, you know what I mean? It's a big deal. We don't have a lot. And that's something that's hard to get our bus drivers too. So it was sort of, and if I understand it correctly, when we went from 5 days to 4 days, it's kind of correcting some of that with our bus drivers as well.
Right.
So they're not hurt by going from the 5 to the 4. So, questions?
And that extra 140 just comes out of the general fund, is that right?
That will come out of the general fund. It will. And it is a hit, but it's one that I would recommend as a board to prioritize. I know this was something that was on your task of, hey, Marcia, this is something we want you to hit first. And Sandy just jumped on it and like, I got it, and just started working on it immediately. And I would just say, it looks good, it makes sense. So they get the same percentage increase as certified staff.
Yeah, I would agree. And obviously, we just talked through a lot of the details and specifics of this in our work session and stuff, but I think some lingering things from when the calendar was transitioned to a 4-day week that were never cleaned up in that transition, and then with additional reduction of days just kind of magnified that. So I think this is certainly a necessary correction, and better aligns our classified folks to adequate pay, because I felt like there was an inappropriate gap starting to be created there. So I think this is a very important and positive step forward.
I got a question on your CDL stuff, and may or may not be a big deal, but you know, every 2 years you gotta go in and do your physical. Does the school district pay for that, or do they? Okay, that's good. I mean, that's $100 now, or $150 depending on where you go. And then if you're not in great health, then you have to go back every year. I snuck by for the 2 year. One last time.
Thanks for looking out for bus drivers though, right?
Well,
So,
you
thank
know, I mean, that's another expense because you have to have it, so I
Thank
didn't
you.
know if we did that or not, which that's good.
It is.
The only other question I think just should be asked is, do you believe that we can balance a revised budget with this budget hit that we're talking about taking?
I do, I do. And one that I had put out there at the work session is you could choose, because this is day 1 of week 3. I haven't had the opportunity to go deep into the budget. So yes, I know, knowing we haven't spent everything, right? And the proposal I said is, if you chose to not renew your hail buy down on the deductible, side note, roofs aren't replaced yet. If you chose not to approve that, there it is. Pretty close, so something to consider. That definitely puts more wiggle room in the budget. It's not as scary. Not that it's scary, don't take that. All right, any other thoughts, questions about this action item? It is up for action later on this evening. Right, you already heard from Mr. Lorenzini about the chiller and the gym floor, so those are there. You're gonna take action after this board report, or this superintendent's report. Mr. Murphy has recommended and received quotes, multiple quotes for these, and he's provided the best quote for you for those 70 desktop PCs for staff. Those are gonna go. We also need them in some of the classrooms so that students can access Microsoft Office. So that's the other piece there. The Chromebook license are for those Chromebooks that you purchased, that you approved earlier. They each have to have their own license, so that's what that's for. And then our antivirus detector is the other piece there. Those are all action items later on this evening. Any questions on any of those?
Just for my own clarity, Marcia, should have asked when Jamie was here. When we say chiller, is that part of the air conditioning unit or the freezers in the cafeteria?
It's environmental controls.
So that's air conditioners.
Yeah, a chiller is like an industrial version,
Okay.
where it basically cools a coolant,
Yep.
and the coolant cools the air
Okay.
versus directly cooling the air.
All right. Thank you.
It would be nice if it was the refrigeration, because then it could do food service, and then it would be a lot less stressful.
That's what I was thinking, right? Yeah, surely this isn't food service, because then we can spend that money down since we have to anyway, but.
And the other thing it
Would've
does,
been nice.
it builds an ice bank so that there's some reserve there, so that thing's not working all
All
the
the
hot
time.
day. So they're pretty neat, high-tech, expensive quite a bit different than your house air conditioner though.
A big two. If you look just further, do you have any other questions? Okay, I just didn't wanna move on. So right below where that Viper antivirus detector line item is, you're gonna see a chart that Mr. Murphy put together, and I just thought this was a nice highlight of the work that he's doing to try to find the best deal for our district, the best plan, and not waste money. He's, I can say, very cautious of every cent, and so I appreciate that with him. And you can see what his plan is with Viper there. What it is, the first section is this past school year, and the next section with the recommendation, you can see the difference in funds for that $9,850. So again, just appreciate his hard work, his knowledge too. Mr. Murphy, anything you want to add about that?
It overall would be a slight increase in our amount of detection. So the previous year was, was a weird mix because we tried to go all Chromebook except for a handful, and that's what that mess is up there. But yeah, this will be a little more robust protection, a little more a little more proactive in terms of the previous, where we just block based on a list of definitions and it wouldn't really, so I think this will make us more efficient, or me more efficient in terms of our cybersecurity, so.
Great. Any questions on that? On any of the technology quotes and action items? The next action item you have is a new auditor, and again, thank you to Sandy. I want you to know she contacted every single auditor on the CDE website, every single one. And all of them said, we don't have room. Every single one. So then she didn't give up hope. She reached out to CDE Finance Unit, who's then sent an email out to the entire unit, to the finance unit. They give us a couple new recommendations. We have this one, or we have another one that was double this cost. Those were really our two choices. And so we're like, I wonder which one we should recommend. I think we'll go with this one. The other one would have, $40,000 just felt like a lot for an audit. That to me says thanks, but no thanks, no, we don't have room, but we'll do it if you want to pay a very high price. So I would recommend that we move forward, because obviously getting an auditor is extremely difficult. Once we've engaged with this auditor and we see his work, then we can assess, is this a good relationship, and do we want to continue it? So any questions on that?
What was the cost of our previous auditor?
That was a great question that Mr. Miller asked me earlier too, and unfortunately Miss Carey's on vacation, so I should have been
I actually
proactive.
was, 18.
Is
Oh,
it
thank
18?
you.
I thought it was close to
I
that.
was curious too.
Alright.
She is.
I should have known you would already know. Thank you, that's great. So, appreciate that. Later on, any other thoughts or questions on that? The next piece is our MOU with Woodland. I'm not asking you to make any type of decision on this unless you have some insight or thoughts. I'm meeting with Mr. Daly later this week, that's the new superintendent of Woodland, about allowing buses to come into our district. From what I understand, 2 buses come in, they park here at the Wendy's in the morning, and they drop off there at Wendy's. If you have any thoughts or feedback for me going into this meeting, I would love to hear it, whether it's right now or if you want to send me an email or call me, any thoughts. I'm very open to it.
How unusual is that type of situation for a school district?
In my world, from my experience, it's highly unusual, but maybe I've dealt with very competitive people. So that could just be where I've been, that usually you don't cross district lines. I did have an agreement with a superintendent in my previous district that we could go 1 mile in, because it was a family that had a long-standing tradition, like the grandparents went there and the parents, in that farm. Another superintendent we talked about, maybe 1.5 mile radius from the district's border. That was it. One said absolutely not. Like, we can't at all. In the district before that, yeah, it was a no-go. So that's my experience. However, I also know this has been a long-standing agreement, from what I understand.
I don't know how long it's been actually, because at one point there was a private company that brought a bus into Brush to pick those kids up. It was actually not a Woodland School District bus to get around that. So I don't know how long. Does anybody know when we started signing this MOU?
I agree, it's not been real long, but I don't know exactly how
I'd say
long it was.
within the last 5 years.
Yeah, I'd
maybe.
say, yeah,
Oh,
5.
really? Okay. I'd heard something different, so thank you for that.
What did you heard?
A long-standing agreement.
Just long standing.
So there must be some sort of statute or rule or something that defines public school boundaries
Mhm.
and the responsibility of a district to stay within their boundaries. Can you share a synopsis of what that is?
So you have district boundaries, and school districts are not allowed to go into another district. Like, I can't go into Fort Morgan's and bus kids. I can't go take a bus and park it like at their Dairy Queen and say, hey, come on in. That's just not allowed. There was a bill that went through the state legislation a couple of times to try to allow buses to go within each other's district. Those failed, so that was not passed. So as it stands now, it has to be approved. Usually it's from superintendent to superintendent, with the board, yes, this is it. This one, what I thought was interesting about this MOU, if you look, is that it doesn't require any board action from what I see on this MOU. So that's why I'm saying this was superintendent to superintendent. So just so you know, typically a lot of MOUs will just bring, even if it's a consent agenda, but just so that you know what's there. But
And not that it would change if we disallowed busing, because I think if students, parents, et cetera, are choosing to go to Woodland, that's for a reason, and they'll probably figure it out no matter what, but based on the number of students that are going out of district, what kind of financial impact does that look like, roughly?
well, from what I understand, it's, and I don't have the exact numbers, but let's say it's 50 kids. Multiply 50 by whatever your PPR is. Let's just say it's 10, it's more than 10. There you go.
Is there any liability to us allowing a school bus from another district coming in here?
No liability. One of the questions I had, I found it interesting that it was at Wendy's, which is a very public place. Just, this is somebody new, right? I think that it's very public. I-76, you see it, it's right by the district office. I'm like, wow, that's intriguing to me that we have it here, right there. I wondered if there was a place that maybe was closer to the district border, and maybe not so right front and center, but that's just a wondering I have.
Well, I'm pretty sure out there they drop off a lot of kids at like GG. They pull off to the side of the road there. If you've ever been going south on 71 when that bus, there's a handful of parents, so that bus doesn't have to go off the road. I've seen it many times, and there'll be 4 or 5 cars parked there to pick them up. Or I've been by there early when they were dropping off there. But that's that would probably be in their district.
It's not, I don't think it is. I think you're talking about Road F.
I'll pull it up real
Maybe it
quick.
was,
I'm just gonna pull up our
maybe
district
it was
boundary.
that.
I'm pretty sure I know where you're talking about, and that is in Brush School District.
That's still in Brush School District?
That's my old stomping grounds.
Okay, well, That's where that house that sits there, that two-story house, they've got a pretty good pull out
There
there.
it is.
Yeah,
Can you see it on this
Yeah, I've seen
screen?
them there before too.
I can zoom in a little bit.
yeah, it's definitely within the district where they drop off there.
If that helps, I can. Go closer.
So a couple thoughts, I guess, I'm just gonna,
F11 makes it full screen.
What was that?
F11 will make it full screen.
F11. Do I just press FN and on 2 ones? Oh, up here, F11 right there. It said no. That's okay. We'll just kind of get an idea here. Okay.
it's there where, the intersection of Road F and 71 is where Sean's talking about.
So there's the district boundary, you can kind of see there, if that helps.
District boundary's a county line, right? Looks like to me, Road 8.
Yep. That is true. So a couple thoughts, I'm just gonna air this out there. I'm a huge supporter of school choice and for parents to be able to decide where their kids go to school. I don't wanna take those choices away from parents. But, that is a pretty big financial hit. The other side of it is if we were to draw a line in the sand and say we don't want this MOU, I think there may be some opportunities to partner with Woodland on some shared services kind of stuff. I think we've done that in the past, haven't we?
Yeah, that's about that.
So, I mean, there's some, I think we need to consider those kind of relationships with districts in, you know, these smaller rural districts that we could share some of our services and bring some of our budgetary costs down through those relationships, and so I just don't wanna burn bridges is all.
I mean, be realistic, right? If that many kids from Brush are going out there, what does that school district look like if they're not?
Be tough.
And it's necessary, I mean, it's right, it's already, how many times is it consolidated out there over the years, and there's families out there that, they need that school.
They do.
It's too far to come to Brush, and what's that whole picture look like, so. And this is not in line in the same type of deal, but
Right.
it's still a big chunk of money.
And it is late in the game to, in my opinion, to end it, because they have staffing patterns and all of that. But it's something that I just would love your thoughts on. I don't know what the community's thoughts are, so as you talk to your constituents, you know, and provide that feedback, it could be, hey, we renew for this year, and then we look at it, you know, as you talk to people and find out, hey, do we support this? And I have a chance to know more about, hey, what does this partnership look like? Would it make sense to go ahead and move the stop? You know, is it Wendy's the best place? Is there another place that could be an option? Those are questions that I hope to get answers to.
I think
Yeah.
that stop is more like Superior's old office, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Wendy's.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think,
Okay.
I think that pull-off is actually public access is my guess. I don't think they're actually pulling onto private property there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the trucks can pull in and park on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why they've chosen there
Okay.
rather than a private pull-off somewhere. The other side of it is, you bring 50 kids back in the district, you've got the expense of 50 kids too, right? So it's not all just revenue. So,
So are you okay if I kind of move forward to it, kind of like for now? And then we'll talk more August 12th, but that would be a really late.
Yeah, I think it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see how many people are actually going to Woodland and also how many are going to Prairie, because I know the buses pick up some Brush kids who go to Prairie also.
That bus used to pick up at that old church. Is it still there?
They
I
still
haven't
do,
drove that in
yeah,
so
they still
long.
pick up there,
Okay.
yeah.
that one actually is on GG.
That one's GG.
Right.
Those are single letters, that when I
Yeah,
said
you
that,
go
I meant,
south or single.
and you
I
said
knew what you were
F, and
thinking.
I was like, yeah, I went double lettered that way, the wrong deal.
All right, so, I'll have that conversation with Mr. Daly. I'll let you know through my weekly emails as well, how that conversation goes, and I'll try to get some of those numbers about how many kids are going, to Woodland and to Prairie.
Something,
Be interested, on that topic, sorry to
No, it's
interrupt, but
okay, go
before
ahead.
we jump topic here. Would it be appropriate through this work to ask Woodland to administer a survey to those families? To maybe provide us some feedback as to why they're
That's what I
choosing
was thinking,
to go
too.
out of district? And maybe that is a tool to help us get better.
I'll propose it and see what he has to say. Be interesting information.
Yeah.
It may just be a good fit, smaller district or something, I don't know.
Well, and it
Or there
could
might be
be,
something that
it could be that a lot of
We
them
can
live.
rectify.
Mhm. What was that, sorry?
Paul, how far, you said that's your old stomping grounds, how far was it to the Woodland School District as it was to Brush?
it was closer to go to Woodland.
That's what I mean.
But we had a bus that came to our house.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we would've had, my mom would've had to drive us to Woodland, and I wasn't in the cards for a single mom.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying, you get clear out there, some of them are, it's gonna be closer for them,
Yeah.
in that respect, so.
When I was a kid, if there was a bus at F, we would've went to get on that bus to go south, cause it's closer.
Yeah, yep.
Thank you. All right, the next piece, like I said, I had a nice long meeting with Mr. Torres today. There is a document in your packet, there it is, I was like, I thought there was. It looks like this. These are some projects that not just Mr. Torres, but his different department heads have come together to say, hey, these are some possible opportunities to partner with the district. Green, from their perspective, feels like doable, maybe could be done in the near future. Yellow, hey, some work's going to have to happen, and red is either the expenses are high or there's a lot of work. So this is, and what he shared with me is he's also open to, if we have suggestions for this, like what would we like to see and how would we like to partner? So what I'd like you to do this month is just look this over. I'm gonna be meeting with him again in August. We're gonna set up a cadence of meetings. And one of the things that came out of our meeting is that whatever we end up agreeing to in meetings is we just wanna make sure it's in writing, is what I said, and that both of us sign. Hey, this was our outcome, just to have clarity. Our goal is to work together. We are too small of a community to have a division. And so how do we mutually benefit each other and work together and to say, hey, how do we make the greatest community we possibly can? And so that's the goal, and that's our work moving forward. So please look those over. Reach out with questions. We went through several of them, and we'll continue to discuss them in the August meeting. All right. Now moving, that was the business side of the house. Now moving to instruction. Are you ready?
Really quick on this, Marcia,
Sure.
you were gonna meet with Lance next too, right, to talk about rec scheduling and,
I am.
okay.
So one of the next meetings, so I'm gonna meet with Monty again because I wanna continue discussing this in depth. We met for 3.5 hours and finally at about 1:15 I said, I have to go. I have to, and I felt bad because we still had more to talk about. So we'll finish this conversation and then I'm scheduling a meeting with him and each of his department heads.
Okay, great.
So that kind of that warm handoff and we're all on the same page and we're just wanting to ramp up the communication and make sure we're all hearing the same thing and building relationships, so.
Sounds good. Thank
But
you.
yes, I'm excited, I'm looking forward to meet Lance,
Mhm.
really am. All right, instruction side of the house, the big news, super excited about this, is Mr. Bass is here and recommending, in collaboration, this is not a top-down, collaboration of recommending his title being changed from director to principal. And our 2 new assistants becoming, instead of assistant directors, assistant principals. Mr. Bass, anything you want to add about that, or? Dave?
No, I just think with the restructure, it's probably best to rename, I think, the old titling system worked when we were attempting to merge some administrative things, 612, and now that those things are pretty much 612 across the board, it makes more sense to go back to titles that at least the community knows and is very familiar with.
Sad about that. So he's already starting in his communications. He has a whole communication plan for the beginning of the year, so that will be happening, and those roles will be rolled out, so to speak. So, any questions on that, on those titles or concerns?
The only piece, I mean, you're probably aware of this, but that we did change some of the language and, I mean, handbooks have the other titles. Some policy might now have director versus principal as well.
Actually, luckily,
We didn't
I
change a whole bunch of them.
switched it to building administrator. No.
Oh, you did?
That was wise.
Good.
So we're safe
Nice
still.
job.
Yeah, we're good.
Very forward thinking there.
Well, then that way it covered both principal and director by
Yeah.
calling them administrator, so.
I like it.
There you go. Any other thoughts there? All right. Handbooks. So those handbooks are, you've received those. The links are in the board docs. There's a couple of things there. One, we noticed that it was pointed out to me that in a couple of the handbooks, it still has names instead of roles for positions, and that was something, from what I understand, was something you wanted to kind of clean up last year, was like, hey, instead of having all these names, let's use roles in board handbooks. So we'll go through all of the handbooks. I'll ask the administrators, hey, if you'll just make sure to check through that. There's a couple places where the exact name makes sense, like Sandy is the Title IX coordinator, and we want them to know that. But outside of that, we just want to make sure those are evergreen and they just stay that way. The other piece would be with the BSC handbook is the high school and the middle school student handbooks, is there's a change in eligibility. And I shared with you and in my end of week email that this is a change that came from ILT, and Mr. Bass can elaborate on this too, but it came through instructors, it came through the teachers that, hey, this is something we want to raise expectations. And instead of saying, okay, 2 Fs, which is the basic possible minimum, we want to make it 1 F or 2 Ds. And just side note, and I said this, is that that's what it was in my previous district. And this is just what it is, right? When kids know, I don't know about you, but if they know, hey, bedtime is at 8 o'clock, or, you know, whatever it is, or, you know, you don't get that, it's just that expectation. This is what it is. And Mr. Bass has an entire plan to communicate that with parents. Do you want to talk about that at all?
So we'll start with all of my beginning of the year stuff. Beginning of the year newsletter will have that communication eligibility requirements have changed. Here's what they are. And then we will hit that again at parent meetings for both middle school and high school for athletics. And then the plan is we don't actually formally pull eligibility per policy until the 3rd full week of classes. So there's enough grades in the grade book. We're not catching kids with one missing assignment that kills them. So those first 2 weeks, there'll be a reminder sent to all parents and all students at the end of the week. Hey, eligibility requirements have changed, just a reminder that we have new ones. And on our formality side, it changes us, I believe, to CHASA option A instead of CHASA option B, which is no big deal other than when we submit our membership paperwork. So we go from option A to option B. Option A allows for 1 failing grade, option B allows for no failing grades in any Carnegie units. So just our membership paperwork to CHASA will change this year because we'll submit a different eligibility.
I should have sent this question earlier, and the only reason why I'm asking is because I know you're a data guy, and you probably know the answer anyways, but do you know how many more students will be ineligible? Just on average, what's your gut there?
On average, it'll take us back to probably pre-cell phone policy levels, if nothing else changes. The hope obviously being that by raising standards, kids rise to the new standard. But if we did, just based on the last few years' grade data, it takes us slightly higher than our pre-cell phone eligibility days, so. Not to like unseen numbers that we've never had at Brush Middle School or Brush High School, but it would bump us back up from what we've had the last few years.
So we just have to have a plan to work with those kids when that happens, right? And
Yeah,
I know you do.
And we're gonna monitor as well, just, I have all the week-to-week data from last year, and we're gonna watch that too, just to see if we have any spikes early, or if we have random spikes. And then middle school's transitioning back to quarterly eligibility, and quarterly grade resets, so
Yeah.
we'll have some probably positive eligibility movement on that, especially November through that last chunk of December. And then track season, post-spring break.
You hope that's a motivator and an opportunity to help some kids, right?
Yep.
There's been a lot of thought put into this, definitely by the instructional team and Mr. Bass, and so I think, I'm excited about their desire to raise expectations. Like, that's commendable.
So what is the ineligible, right, the way you're doing it?
So it's stated as one failing grade or 2 or more Ds. So you get essentially 1 D is your gimme. If you have 2 Ds, you're ineligible, and then no Fs. If you have an F, you're ineligible. Previously, you could have unlimited Ds, and as long as you didn't have more than 1 F. So, and there was, so ILT brought the initial proposal, passed that committee unanimously, took it to middle school leadership team. So ILT handles instruction side, school leadership teams handle more of the policy and operational sides. So obviously it's a handbook change, has to go through SLT as well. Middle school SLT was unanimous in passing. High school SLT was a 5-2 vote, and a much longer conversation. There is a chunk of our high school staff who are concerned that there are some kids who genuinely put in their very best effort and work their tails off, and they're gonna be the kids that have 2 Ds occasionally, 3 Ds occasionally, but they're, they're the kids with 68-69% in multiple classes. So that will be the group of kids that we're gonna have to watch closely and make sure we have the support for, and could potentially have some adverse effects in changing the policy. They're few in number. I mean, it's not like we're talking about 300 kids, but there are certainly a handful that work their tail off and still hover in that high D, low C range, no matter what they do, so.
So we're not offering any Friday activities, secondary campus any longer, is that correct?
In terms of, we're still doing the Friday school, yeah.
Okay.
So they still have that option. We have better turnout to Friday school when it's a attendance-based punishment versus a grade-based intervention. It's weird. Kid's late from lunch or has 6
But
targets.
a kid that wants to play in the football game next
Yep.
week, who's supposedly working his tail off in class and just struggling, you can find that pretty easily if there's a resource on a Friday for them to take
Yeah.
advantage of and they choose not to. I think that would be a determiner. pretty
And we
quick.
have, I mean, for the most part, that is the group that does attend Friday school as well. It's never our group that is, 5Fs. It's always that group that hovers between eligible and ineligible. And when they fall, they do attend and they get grades fixed. So that really is just the group we're gonna have to watch. And make sure we have things for, because there's probably a half a dozen kids that'll be always on that bubble. But
Good. Any other questions about eligibility? So the handbooks are up for approval for you. It's an action item later on this evening. Any other questions about handbooks or thoughts? The next item that will also be an action item is our VEC. That is the Cody and Val, but no longer Val. Cody Lancaster is a consultant, has been a part of, supported Brush School District for a long time. I'd like to bring him in. Right now, the contract would just be until October, see how that goes, and then we can also extend it if so desired. So that's an action item as well. Then it's just the ESEA assurances. I say just, that's your title consolidated application. So that's the annual assurances that go with that. Any questions with any of the instructional side with those pieces? You'll see your personnel report. What I want to highlight besides the hires, is that I was super excited when I talked to Mr. Singley. He does have some openings, but has actually kind of 3 interviews scheduled this week, which are very exciting. So I'm hoping in August you're going to see some recommendations there, and they sound like good ones. So we're always really thrilled about that. The last piece I have is the board policy BG. So that's right in front of you. What I want to highlight to you is if you go to this page 2 at the top, this will be a review. We're just going to review this policy. Tonight is an informational meeting. That's that first meeting. I am just presenting it to you. At the second meeting, which would be in August, according to our board policy, the way we'll handle board policy is that's when the discussion happens, and then it will move, if so desired, to a third reading. It doesn't have to. It can stay in second reading indefinitely. And then at that third reading, that's where the policy looks pristine, it's in its final draft, it has the date on it, and then you can approve it, and it's placed into the policy book. So what we're talking about is what Mr. Chard said, just doing things just slightly differently, having a lot more discussion about the policies that we're going to review. So next meeting, we'll review this one, and at the next meeting, I'll introduce some policies. One of them is a fundraising policy we're going to be presenting. There'll be a couple of others that are on your board. You have a document from the board, so these are items we want to look at. So we might look at a couple of those, but definitely that fundraising policy will be at the next board meeting. So you can read through this over the next month. The idea is at that first meeting is it gives you a chance to like, hey Marcia, what is this? If there are changes, I'll explain the changes and why that we're recommending and who they're being recommended from. Second one is when you have a chance, you've had it for a month, you can read it, then we'll get into some deep discussion and then possibly approve it at that third month meeting. And that is my report.
Very good.
Mr. Tripp?
And so if there was a need for a faster timeline related to policy, would the process then be to suspend the, I want to say suspend the rules, but would it be to suspend policy to allow for action to take place faster than 3 readings?
So there is,
procedure?
great question. There is another policy that allows for an emergency adoption of policy. So let's say something happened and we wanted to adopt a policy immediately. It would be adopted, let's say it was tonight, and I brought one up and I'm like, this has to be implemented tomorrow. You would approve it, and then it would still have to go through the 3 readings at the next
Kind of
3
like
meetings.
probationary status or
Exactly,
something. Okay.
exactly.
All right, great.
Any other questions on superintendent report content? Next item of business, 6.3, financial report.
And that was already taken care of.
Taken care of already. Next item of business would be the board agreement, 7.1. Just need a motion to approve those. There, I don't know, does everybody have the agenda up on their screens? So you can see that I asked Marcia and Sandy to actually put suggested motions on those now, so that we don't have to try to bumble through language on motions. Doesn't mean we have to use that exactly, but it's just a suggestion to give us some guidance.
Okay, I move to approve the superintendent communication agreement, the Brush BOE norms, and the Brush School District Superintendent rule documents as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the board agreements as presented. Floor is open to the first the maker of the motion.
I don't have any comments.
Any other discussion? No discussion, roll call please, Sandy.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen.
Aye.
Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Winchester.
Aye.
Mr. Chard.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 7.2, Board of Education meeting dates for 2024, 2025. Just need a motion to approve those proposed dates.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the 2024-25 Board of Education meeting dates.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2024-2025 Board of Education meeting dates. Floor is open first to the maker of the motion. Is there any other discussion? No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen,
Aye.
Mr. Tadalini,
Aye.
Mr. Winchester.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 7.3, hourly classified and bus driver salary schedule.
Okay, I can make a motion. I'd like to. I move to approve the revised hourly classified and bus driver salary schedules to retain the 7% increase in annual salary by reducing the required number of hours to increase their hourly rate. Or if hours could not be reduced because of job demand, the hourly rate is proportionately increased.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed hourly classified and bus driver salary schedule. Floor is open to the maker of the motion first.
No comment.
Any other discussion? There's no other discussion. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen,
Aye.
Mr. Tadalini,
Aye.
Mr. Winchester,
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 7.4, Brush Secondary Campus chiller repair.
I move to approve the Rush Secondary Campus chiller repair quote as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Brush Secondary Campus chiller repair quote as presented. Floor is open to the maker of the motion first.
No comment.
Any other discussion? There's no other discussion. Sandy, roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen,
Aye.
Mr. Tadalini,
Aye.
Mr. Winchester,
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye, motion passes. Next item of business, 7.5, Brush Secondary Campus refinish gym floors. Is there a motion for action on that item?
Move to approve the gym floor refinish quotes as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the gym floor refinish quotes as presented. Floor is open to the maker of the motion. Is there any other discussion? No other discussion, roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen,
Aye.
Mr. Tadalini,
Aye.
Mr. Winchester,
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye, motion passes. Next item of business, 7.6, property insurance, wind and hail buy down. There's multiple options there for different motions.
Move to define the property insurance wind and hail buy down.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to decline the property insurance wind and hail buy down. Floor is open to the maker of the motion first.
I would encourage a yes vote here. When we made the decision a year ago to decline a buy down, it was discussed that that decision would come with a commitment to reserving funds to become somewhat, for lack of a better term, self-insured to the deductible. And I think jumping back into that 1 year after that commitment, just because it was really scary, but in all reality, we took risk, and maybe that risk event that we all were concerned about happened, and it didn't hurt us, and like, what are the odds? So I feel like the odds have increased in our favor for that decision that was made a year ago, and then couple that with, we still don't have new roofs now, so when are we gonna have new roofs, and what does that look like? I just think it's pretty practical and logical business to decline that.
Is there any discussion and disagreement? Any further discussion? No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen,
Aye.
Mr. Tadalini,
Aye.
Mr. Winchester,
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion to decline property insurance wind and hail buy down has passed. Next item of business, 7.7, technology request for desktop PCs.
I move to approve the desktop PC quote as presented.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the desktop PC quote as presented. Floor is open to the maker of the motion first.
No comment.
Any other discussion? No other discussion, roll call please.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen.
Aye.
Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Windjammer.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye, motion passes. Next item of business, 7.8, technology request for Chromebook licenses.
I move to approve the Chromebook license quote as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Chromebook licenses quote as presented. Floor is open to the maker of the motion first.
No comment.
Is there any other discussion? No further discussion, roll call please.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen.
Aye.
Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Windjammer.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye, motion passes. Item 7.9, district audit firm.
I move to approve our farmer accounting firm to perform the district's annual audit.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the our farmer accounting firm to perform the district's annual audit. Floor is open to the maker of the motion first. Any other discussion? There's no discussion. Roll call please, Sandy.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen.
Aye.
Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Windjammer.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 7.10, Brush Secondary Campus Administrator titles.
I move to approve changing the Brush Secondary Campus Administration staff titles from director to principal and assistant director to assistant principal.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to change the BSC administration's titles from director to principal and assistant director to assistant principal. Any discussion? There's no discussion. Roll call please, Sandy.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen.
Aye.
Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Windjammer.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye, motion passes. Item 7.11, Visionary Educational Consultancy, scope of work. This is the Val and Cody proposal. I guess we need to have a motion before we start discussion or ask questions on it.
I move to approve the August through October bi-weekly scope of work.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the August through October bi-weekly scope of work. Is there any discussion?
Marcia or Miss Cody, we had talked about UIPs, but would you just clarify what the UIP is?
Oh, yeah.
It's different than a
Thank you.
UBD. Yeah, which is what I think a lot of the work was before, was the UBDs, so.
So yes, units by design or understanding by design units is the guaranteed viable curriculum, and that's where Val and Cody have put a lot of effort and a lot of work. They've also supported administrators with their Unified Improvement Plan, UIP, which is the strategic plan. So that's some of the work that we'll be doing, is that Unified Improvement Plan work, as well as then working with administrators and our leadership team bi-weekly, so a couple times a month. on that work.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, there's two options on this proposal. One is a weekly and one is a bi-weekly, and you're recommending the bi-weekly.
Correct, at this time. Our administrators are incredibly busy, so I think bi-weekly is good, and then if we want to ramp it up, then we can, once I've had a chance to work with the admin team, we can find out what the needs and desires are from there. And then we're ready for another proposal. Until then.
Any other questions or discussion on that? No further discussion. Roll call please, Sandy.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen.
Aye.
Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Windjammer.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 7.12, student staff building handbooks.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, member?
I move to approve the student staff building handbooks with an understanding that where appropriate, individuals' names will be removed and replaced with their position or role.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the provided student staff building handbooks, provided the person's names are removed and replaced with the appropriate role. Any discussion on that? No discussion. Roll call, please, Sandy.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen,
Aye.
Mr. Catalini,
Aye.
Mr. Winchester.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye, motion passes. Next item of business, 7.13, personnel.
I move to approve the personnel report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the personnel report. Any discussion? There is no discussion. Roll call, please, Sandy.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen,
Aye.
Mr. Catalini,
Aye.
Mr. Winchester.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye, motion passes. Next item of business, 7.14, ESEA general assurances.
I move to approve the ESEA general assurances.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve ESEA general assurances. Is there any discussion or questions?
Marcia, could you give us just a brief overview on it?
Yeah,
what
I'm
it
just gonna
is.
pull it up. It's pretty much that, like, the assurance remain in effect, so it's a standing form. I'm just gonna pull up some of these. Like, you're going to use the funds, what you're going to say, you're gonna follow,
Okay, the protocol.
every Student Succeeds Act, you know, yeah.
What are the ramifications for the board not approving this ESEA?
We would not
document?
receive title funds, federal funds.
How much does that impact our budget?
That's a really good question. That's the one that I'm still working on getting those allocations for. So, to be determined soon.
Do
Yeah,
you think
there's-
it's significant, or, I mean, just off,
Usually it pays for a couple of staff members. It's significant. I mean, you would, yeah, it'd be significant.
we'd notice it if we didn't have it.
Mhm. You would notice it. You would definitely want to plan for it. I would guess.
Is there any districts that don't do?
Not that I know of right now.
There is on page 3 a bullet towards the end. It's got a lot of conversation around it nationally, so I don't know what that means or doesn't mean, but that's the only
Just
thing
let me
I'm
see if I'm on the
seeing.
right one. What does it begin with?
Title IX.
This one right here that I
Yeah.
have pulled up on the screen,
Yeah.
this one?
Do we know what the exception 904 and 906 is?
I don't. Definitely could look it up or find out. It would be a question.
Is there a deadline on us approving this?
What's interesting is this was actually due June 30th. So we went through this. This is usually something that you sign off, but because it's now required that a board president, so I'm like, I can't just sign off on it or anything. In my previous district, we did do this where I just presented it. And it's been such an annual thing, I haven't taken the time to look deeply like I should have. So, yes, it was due June 30th. And I've told CBOCs who's overseeing this, like, I can't give it to you until it's board approved. So, I mean, you have the opportunity to table it, and have some time to look at it. That is your right.
I was gonna bring this up in the debrief because I thought it was probably more appropriate, but, since we're on the topic, yeah, as we continue to have discussion about local control and parental rights and Title IX, what that looks like for our district, for our students, for our families, this document certainly has some areas of question
Sure.
and what does it look like? I think Marcia said it best, it's something that needs to be planned for. So it was gonna be my recommendation in debrief that this be something that we get put on our board docs, or board business doc, to look into
Before
when
the
Ms.
next
Cody's able to come
cycle.
up for air at some point in
Mhm,
time,
mhm.
but to be able to plan for that and see how that, because I do think it correlates with some of the conversations we've been having in our last work session and stuff, and I don't want this thing to all of a sudden handcuff us from a point of local control that I think we desire, so, but.
You'd wanna know what you're signing. There's nothing wrong with understanding what you're signing, what you're committing to.
Would this affect our ability to get Head Start grant funding? Is that also
Head Start is
federal?
federal.
Yeah, the police department.
Head Start is all federal.
Which is hugely significant amount of money, right?
Correct. Correct.
It's bigger than the time we have tonight or
Mhm.
the timing we have to make a decision of this magnitude within
Correct.
the needs for that funding for current planning, is what I'm getting at.
Correct.
But would like to revisit it.
Yep.
But I mean, really need to move forward with the funding, if this was
Right,
due
that's
already.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, but we also need to take like,
We need,
yeah, okay,
we need to look into this for a year from.
yeah, yep.
Prior to next year.
There's
Prior
still-
to, prior to the June 30th, 25.
Right.
Yep.
Mhm. Agreed.
Any further discussion? There still is a motion on the floor to approve the CSEA General Assurances document. No further discussion. Roll call, please, Sandy.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen.
Aye.
Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Winchester.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Next item of business, 8.1, just information items. So the next Board of Education meeting would be August 12th at 6 p.m. Do you anticipate the need of a work session in between now and then?
Not currently. I think we have, I don't feel like there's a need, cause I feel like we have a lot moving.
Okay.
Just, there's work that needs to be done, but it's just the work.
Very good. Next item of business, 9.1, the debrief section, so clarification and or next steps. Mrs. Cody, do you have any clarification or next steps from the meeting tonight? Anything you'd like to add, clarify?
More ask, just did this process work okay? Superintendent's report going into action items, was that okay? Anything went different for the next meeting? Does that work okay? And nothing to clarify
Okay.
at this time.
Does any board members have any clarifications or questions regarding anything discussed in the meeting tonight?
Just the ESEA, if everybody's good, we get that on that board docs, and then, just, follow up on that gym floor, that third gym floor, and what that looks like, possibilities ahead of basketball season would be
Mhm.
ideal.
On that note, I'm glad you brought those up also, at the next board meeting, that financial report, the one from, Terry Buswell, just highlighting that, that'll be on there too.
Mhm.
Those are some pieces I had heard as well as the handbooks, the final version of the handbooks.
Did the board hear anything tonight that would require us to review or revise any policy other than what we've discussed? Or add any new policy? Very good. Next item of business, meeting adjourned. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. Roll call, please, Sandy.
Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen.
Aye.
Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Winchester.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great night and a good month, I'm sure.
Are we off now? Bobby, are you on? So I sent you an email real quick, but